Hi everyone. We're live with
Everyone.
Marilyn Honig from Coffee Crafts and Cults, and Mark Turi. He's a well known. And Mark, if you want to introduce yourself, that'd be cool.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thanks again for having me on, everybody. Yeah, my name is Mark Turi. If you are familiar with Doug Scott Kramer's channel, Dazed but Not Confused, I've been on his podcast quite a few times. Basically, I'm an ex-Scientologist. I was joined Scientology in May of 2005, and I left in May 2008. I was like 22 when I got in, so it's about 25 when I left, and it's been since then, so 15 years, that I've been speaking out in various forms, mostly online, but also in print, and have done some other interviews throughout the years on TV and so forth. And so, yeah, so I enjoy, meeting new people, and especially this community has been growing within the last year, maybe a little more than that, maybe 2 years. And I've shared my story again multiple times, even on Aaron Smith Levin's channel, growing up in Scientology. But I just love to reach out to different people in this community, which is the SBTV community, which is really fairly new, and it's really kind of exciting. Because again, I've been out for a long time, and certainly all the coverage has just sort of started. So yeah, I'm sort of here to answer any questions, or if you have any thoughts and about anything, I'm pretty open to answering most questions. There's really nothing I don't like to answer, and I'll give my absolute best, answer that I can, and the most honest way I can do it. And if I can't, I might have to say I don't know. But definitely, I think most of the most of the questions, as far as like how people get in and how people kind of struggle through certain things, I can definitely elaborate on, particularly when it comes to young people, which I think can be helpful as well. So, but yeah, thank you. Hello, everybody.
Thank
Well,
you.
welcome.
Yeah, welcome. It's
Yeah, thank
refreshing
you.
that you're not even really, and you're welcome to promote anything, but it doesn't sound like you're not even promoting anything. So it's really refreshing.
No, yeah, I don't have any YouTube. I'm social media, nothing. I just like I've started one of the reasons is I've started endless amounts of podcasts, YouTube channels, and blogs in the past, and I just unfortunately don't have the time really to keep it up. So I'd rather not start something which I have before in the past, and then after a few
Yep.
episodes or a few
Right.
videos have to ditch it. So, but yeah, I'm always very happy when people are doing the work and have me on. It's very nice.
So yeah, no. So that just means you're more dedicated to the cause, right, Marilyn?
That's right, Chad. No, we got this little inside joke. It has to do with I don't know if you've watched Janice and Mark, Mark Fisher and Janice Gillum
A little bit.
Grady. Mark always says,
Mhm.
"Right, Janice," and she's like, "That's right, Mark." So yeah, little nod to that. You'll find we're goofy, but we can be serious too.
That's
But
good.
I just want to say I'm so excited. I'm so excited that you reached out because I've been
Thank you.
wanting to I've been wanting to pick your brain. So here we go.
Okay.
I'll ask you a few questions
Pick away.
and
Cool.
and then maybe it'll spark some questions from the chat. And Chad, you jump in. It's your show. So
Thank
um
you.
one thing that I have been dying to ask you a couple things, but the first thing was we touched on it a little bit in our conversation earlier, but I really wanted to get your take on when you said about young people and your experience as a young person getting into Scientology. We don't have to go through your whole
Mhm.
story, but
Of
whatever
course.
bits and pieces you want to offer. But that really struck me. Even listening, I re-listened to that section of your interview with Aaron, and
Mhm.
yeah, it was a kind of close a little bit to my experience and so many other people that I
Mhm.
know. So yeah, I just was wondering if you had some insight. I know you have some insight, so on that.
Yeah, I mean, when I got into Scientology, I had just graduated community college, and I spent 2 weeks in Los Angeles, sort of as the gift that I was given by my family as a graduation gift. I always wanted to go there, so I was very lucky that I could go there, and it was the first time I was there. But like, graduating, I had been in school since I was 5 and went straight through to college and community college, and I was 22, and I was kind of in a different place there where it was really difficult at my actual program, but I kind of stuck it through it and whatever. And I just kind of felt a little bit disillusioned because, at least in my opinion, college itself and after college became a lot more difficult than I expected. I mean, the real world and the classroom is different. And I think that sometimes, depending on someone's experience, there is such a different experience of being in the classroom, where there's a lot of nurturing in a classroom, and there's a lot of like people getting together and more camaraderie. And then kind of when you go outside of that, it can be very lonely because you're kind of put into this world where, it's a big place, and, you have to have these different responsibilities, and then no one's really there holding your hand through it. And so for me, it was a very disillusioning experience. And I think a lot of that experience, a lot of that disillusionment came with me, and I felt very angry, very bitter, very disillusioned. And that's some of the feelings that I had when I got into Scientology, because I think people feel hurt, like sometimes, like you feel like, why aren't people telling me about these things? Like, if this is what reality is, why am I not being taught this before? And your mind kind of comes up with all these different things, and you sometimes feel lied to. I know this is not everyone's experience, but it was in mine. And Scientology grabbed me and basically said, "You're right. Everyone is lying to you. You were raised incorrectly. Society's doing this thing wrong. And here's, the tech, and here's Hubbard, and, he's going to rebuild you. And this is what reality actually is. Like the Matrix, you've been asleep all your life. Now you're going to wake up," and so on. So yeah, basically that's kind of how it presents itself, at least at first.
Excellent.
Yeah, that makes sense to me about, what you said about them telling you that, everyone's been lying to you, or that your parents, we all know that late teens or even early teens and early 20s, you think you know everything. Oh, did we lose him?
Oh, okay. Let's see if he comes back.
Oops.
I'll give him a minute.
Apologies. You just have to give me a second. I'm sorry. Someone's calling
okay.
me. Sorry. I
Oh,
apologize.
that's all right.
Chad will drink some of his coffee meanwhile. Welcome, everyone.
All right. Sorry about that.
We have Degraded
I'm just
Daughters
trying to-
Genetics in the chat. Kelly,
Hey.
Copper. Wait, how do you spell your name?
Helicopter?
Okay,
a helicopter?
All right, cool. I always mess it up, and I'm like, wait, what?
They're beautiful. Sorry, I'm trying to locate these starred questions, and I'm not seeing them. I don't know what's going on.
And
I see the actual chat.
Yep. We got Billy.
Sorry, guys. I'm really kind of new at this. Still.
Lady BB. Creepy.
Hey.
Sophia.
Yeah. Witness. We see everybody.
Yep.
Shauna. Hello.
Turi.
Tiff 45. Oh,
Peggy.
here we go. Yeah.
Cool.
We see a start question. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Mark will be right with us. So send us your questions.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to speak for Mark, but he's also a historian. He's well educated. He knows about so many different religions and cults and course of control. He's a student of, so many different, like I said, religions and the Stephen Hassan books and everything. We had a nice conversation earlier, and I was like, I can't wait to ask you 1,000 questions. So anything that you've been wondering, I mean, this is a nice intimate setting. I mean, we got 40 people in the chat, and we got our coffee or our water. We're just hanging out on a Saturday afternoon. So
absolutely,
let us know if you have anything on your mind within reason.
Right. Yeah. Any questions are welcome.
Yeah. We see so many familiar names.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I just got to keep checking the chat.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. All righty. All right. Here we go. Sorry. I talk to myself when I do this. Yeah.
All right.
So, um, so I was thinking about the broadcast that we did on what day was that? Now was it Thursday with
Oh, probably.
Vanessa, who was in the
Yep.
chat, by the way. Hey V,
Hey,
she
Vanessa.
did a fabulous job. She made so many just amazing points about the connection of Heaven's Gate and Scientology, and it
Yeah,
just
I
blew my
agree.
mind. It just blew my mind. Hey, that was so much fun. Yeah, we
Yeah, I
gotta
hope
do
we
this
could do that
again.
again. Yep,
There's so many cults to explore too, and
I know.
I like the idea of kind of holding it up even as a yardstick, since we're SPTV, you know, Scientology is the one that we can kind of compare so many to, but
Absolutely. The
it's uncanny.
similarities, the mind control, um, how everyone's the same, like you said last time, same last names. Um, yeah,
Yeah, it was wild.
yeah, yeah. It was very nice.
Okay, Mark said he'll be back shortly.
Okay.
So here we are. So we're gonna look at the chat.
Yeah, let's see which one we
Um,
want to hit first.
Shanna P. Leonard. Did he already say what his positions were at the org? No, I'm not
No,
sure
I
what it
don't think
was.
he did.
He he was in, I think, 3 different locations during his time in Scientology, so we'll have him. Yeah, he
Yeah,
was. Is that
yeah.
the one that's
I think he was public, right?
there? Let's star that one so we can ask him when he
Okay.
comes back.
Yep. All right. Good
And then
idea.
this one we can take now. Tip 45, hello. Question, how often is food used in coercive control in some of these cults? I don't know how often. It definitely is in, I think it's, what is it, Robert J. Lipton? Is that his name? Lipton? Yeah. It's definitely one of the ways that they use to control people, that in sleep deprivation, heavy labor. And it was totally in my cult, we did a ton of fasting, a ton.
Oh
And,
wow.
as you can see, I made up for it now, but I was very, very, very thin. So you got to,
Sorry, guys.
hey,
I'm really sorry
That's all
for the
right.
interruption. It's just,
that's all,
yeah, forgive me.
it's all
Really
good.
forgive me. Didn't mean
It's
to
all
just
good.
drop it and everything. Yeah. Wait.
So
Life happens.
Yeah.
we have a couple questions.
Of course. Yeah. And again,
This
please,
one,
to the audience, forgive me.
that's okay. Um, I was kind of addressing this one because it was something that really
Sure.
was an issue in my cult. No, it wasn't my cult. It was cult I was in, and food was definitely used. It was called fasting, and we fasted a ton. And our leader pretended to fast, but she wasn't
Mm-hmm.
losing tons of weight like the rest of us.
Mm.
So it was definitely used to control us. And there were, of course, it always starts slow, right? It was like a
Yeah.
half a day, then a whole day, then 3 days, and then
Oh.
eventually there were 10-day fasts going on. And I never made it to that because I was working outside. It was a commune for the first till I got married for the first 6 years. And I couldn't fast completely for 10 days, but some of my housemates did, and they literally, like, 2 of them lost their minds, like, literally lost their
Yeah.
minds and were hospitalized.
Wow.
Yeah, so
Oh my
it was
gosh. Yeah.
crazy. So,
In
um
my staff, I'm sorry, Marilyn, go
no,
ahead. I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. I was gonna hand it no, I'm handing it to you. I was just gonna say what's your input on this?
Well, in my staff experience, when I was in Berlin, basically we were making next to no money. So we made like very, very little money. The average every week was probably somewhere between 25 and 20 euros, 20, 25 euros. And some days were, some weeks were okay. We make maybe 60 or 70, maybe 80 plus. But most weeks were, yeah, anywhere from 20 to 30. And then in some cases, we would make under 15 euros a week. So usually when you're, presented that way, and I was doing so much work, I was working, at least 90 hours on an average week, sometimes over 100 hours, sometimes over 110 hours in some cases. And so there was no food, like food just didn't, it just didn't exist really, essentially. And you couldn't function normally. And so I have tons of memories of being both very sleep deprived and being very much deprived of food, and almost feeling and acting as if I were drunk, which is very strange, because obviously when you feel inebriated, you're kind of dizzy, you're kind of giddy. Like even with my roommate, giggling a lot, and just your brain is just somewhere else. And then I remember just having stomach pains, going to sleep, and things like this. And I also lost quite a bit of weight. So one of the ways that they used food to, like, in a negative sense, I mean, obviously it's negative to not be able to eat, okay, or not be able to have enough money to buy food. But when we would have this something called the birthday game in Scientology, and basically when you're on staff, you collect all the statistics from the week. Thursday at 2 o'clock is when you sort of close your week, and then all the statistics are calculated. And then usually on Friday is when you get paid, which again was next to nothing. But also there was this thing called the birthday game. So then all the orgs all over the world compete, and they bring all their statistics, and they're reported. I think it was to Clearwater, could also be Los Angeles, I'm not exactly sure, but some place in the United States. They were sent, I guess, through emails or whatever. And then it was a competition. So if the org won for the week, we would get a party, and at the party there'd be food, and people would just go crazy for the food. I mean, literally, like insane. Like they would rush the food tables. People would eat like everything. So it was very much, food and sleep were used, as they are in these destructive groups, in a very manipulative way, because the organization gives you a lack of those things, and then they use those things against their members in order to motivate them, but also to keep them controlled as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's how it was in my cult. It was just, and when it was so weird, because when anyone visited from the outside world, they would roll out the red carpet, and here we were emaciated and pale and everything, and the cult leader's sister would come up with like dozens of bagels from New York City, and we would, just like we were like starving, and like I said, the cult leader, she would sneak food to her room, is what the rumor was, but yeah, it definitely was. And Vanessa's right. It does change your ability to think straight, to, after a while, you just get so like zombonic, you just go through the motions. And that was definitely a big thing. And the sleep deprivation too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things is with lack of food, you get lack of nutrients, and it actually makes everything weaker, including your muscles and everything. So you'll be much more malleable at that point.
Definitely. Yeah. It's like, I always think of the bite model, it's like, okay, yeah, that's part of the bite model. Definitely. So let's get another question.
I just want us to say hi to Aaron is in the chat.
Oh
yeah.
Hey,
Aaron.
Thanks for joining us.
Shoot
a question.
Yeah,
try to stump him or us or something. Okay.
Yeah.
Got that one. There he is, the man of the hour.
Right. No. Oops, that's the man of the hour. Sorry about that, everybody. Hi. Mark, hi.
Hey, good to meet you.
You too.
This is Steveo.
Yeah, man. Of course. Yeah, I know. Denver, you've been on a lot of Ducks chats, which has been really cool. Been really nice.
Absolutely. Big fan.
Yeah.
So glad to
to
be here, if not late.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
okay,
Denver's a great city.
It's okay.
All right. So we're just taking some questions, Steveo, but you just jump in at any point if you got a question, or you want to just make a joke, or you want to tease us. We haven't been on in a little while, so
it's been a bit.
I know, right?
Yeah. Last Monday We're usually every few days, so
I know.
we haven't had Steveo. So Shauna P. Leonard asks, Mark, did you already say what
Mhm.
your positions were at the org? So
Yeah. So
you were
when
on
I started,
staff.
I was on staff for 1 year. And so I joined, as I mentioned, I joined Scientology in May 2005. I joined staff 2 years later in May 2007. And when I joined staff in Berlin for the first month or two, I guess, maybe month or so, I was what's called a letter registrar, which is in a part of the org that's called the public division, and that's in called the Dianetics Foundation. Essentially, it's a job where you write letters to people. Like I was writing letters to people who had bought in books like in the 70s. It was a really just horrible job. And you just go through these old files that they have on people, you get their address, and you just write, fluff kind of, um, kind of letters. And the idea is you're supposed to be writing more and more letters every week and all this kind of stuff. But then I think after about a month, so sometime at least by June or July of that year, I was put into what's called the Treasury Division, which is Division 3, and I was in charge of department number 8, I think, which is called Records, Assets, and Material. And yes, it is number 8 because, and I don't know why I still remember this. You drill into your head all the time, but 7 is income and 9 is disbursement. So yeah, so it's in there. And I was in Treasury. Treasury is basically the bookkeeping. Records, assets, and material literally is records kept on financial records, also the records of the staff. We keep their assets are pretty self-explanatory. It's what the org owns. If it breaks, you get decreased. And assets, if you buy something, then it increases in assets. Again, it's very much a logistics accounting kind of thing. And then material has to do with supplies, pens, paper, printing cartridges, and the whole thing is just a nightmare because it's just very bureaucratic. And then I was also responsible for ordering such things, which everything is just get the cheapest in whatever bulk you're doing. And then finally, when I had to leave Berlin in February of 2008, I was transferred in March of 2008 to San Francisco, and I was what is called what was it called? An establishment officer for Division 7, which is the executive division. So I was only there for about 2.5 months. So I didn't really do much. But essentially, what an establishment officer does is they're kind of like, I don't even know if it's like this exactly, but they're a little bit like human resources in a sense. Not exactly, but they are the person whom, if you're doing your work, so maybe it's not exactly like human resources, you'll have to forgive me. If you're in an office and you're doing your work, the establishment officer basically will like go up to the people who are doing their work to sort of make sure that they know their own policies. So you're not actually producing anything. You're just making sure that everyone around you is established in their jobs. So I'm not even really sure what that is. I mean, it's probably a good company wouldn't really have that kind of a person because you're just interrupting people working all day to tell them if they know their job, which they already know. It's absurd.
Isn't that
But that
DevT?
was the whole thing. Well, I mean, not Ron. Ron did it, so of course that's not FT, but yeah,
Right.
of course.
Everything
But
sounds
anyway,
so
that's the idea.
official.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
it's awful. I know.
sounds like a lot of work.
So yeah, so the establishment it's so basically like, okay, so the executives, let's say they're all in an office, it would have been my job to go into that office and like tap someone on the shoulder and basically say, like, I would be like a supervisor. I don't know how much you guys know about course supervising or whatever, but essentially like I would have to word clear with these people. I would have to ask them questions. Like it's almost like I'm a supervisor inside of the office to make sure that they all know what they're doing. And it's just redundant because they should already know what they're doing anyway. So it's just like,
So,
it's fine. So yeah, it's all just bureaucracy. It doesn't make any sense. So,
And so
yeah.
just refresh our memory. So you were in Berlin and then
Yes.
you went to San Francisco. You eventually ended up in Canada. Is that how it went?
Well, yeah, I mean,
I'm trying to remember.
I'm from Canada, from Toronto. So
Okay.
yeah, basically. So once I left, San
Okay, when
Francisco
you left.
in May of 2008, and then that's when I left Scientology, and then I moved back to Toronto. So that's where I was before and after Scientology. Yeah.
Wow.
So describe the process of leaving. How was it for
Well,
you?
it was very hard. So I was working in San Francisco, and things were going fine, but they weren't great. My living situation was rough because I was living with a bunch of second generation Scientologists. I was like sleeping on a couch. It was really hard, and the roommates they were not really good people at all. They were just really horrible. For example, I was supposed to pay $200 a month on rent, and then they decided it was going to be $300, and then then it was going to be higher and higher. Like it was awful in that sense. And then again, I was sleeping on a couch, and like it was nonsense. So I had some problems kind of getting to work on time, and if you get in late, whatever. Like there's just all these things. San Francisco is also super expensive, so I was getting maybe $50 a week, and still wasn't enough for food. I couldn't work. They didn't provide any health insurance, which is what they actually say that they should be on the visa that I got. So there's a lot of scams going on with immigration and the Church of Scientology. But eventually, what happened was when you get into Scientology, you get a lot of folders, as I mentioned earlier. But one of the folders you get is called a pre-clear folder, and you get what's called an ethics folder. And it took some time for my pre-clear folders and my ethics folders to go from Berlin to San Francisco. It actually took about around 2 months. So my folders got there in the last 2 weeks that I was there. And one of the reasons is because Sea Org has their own courier system. And of course, it's just slow and stupid and whatever, just like everything else is. And so it took about 2 months. And so I get there, my folders finally get there. And there's a guy named Steve Latch, who was a class 8 senior CS, one of these second gens, very arrogant guy. He was my landlord. Like it was ridiculous. And he just saw some stuff in my folders that I had disclosed, like when I first joined Scientology in Toronto, which was back in, again, May and June of 2005. Stuff like when I was a teenager, I had heard the word Scientology on television, so I Googled it, and I don't remember what I necessarily read or saw, but I guess I would have found some what they call N theta or some, negative information. And that I thought was dealt with, but according to Steve, it wasn't, and I was basically kicked off staff. So when I was dismissed from staff, I went to Los Angeles. It was a very small flight, of course, 40 minutes or whatever. And I tried to get some reasons as to why that was. I got a rigmarole. Nobody really cared. And so I just decided basically to leave because it was a very hard sort of situation. I put in all this time, and I put in all this like grueling, hard, just horrible stuff in Berlin. Witnessed a lot of abuse, verbal abuse, some physical abuse, although it was mostly people throwing things and people screaming at each other, yelling at each other, and getting paid very low. So it was very much abuse, and essentially nobody really cares because at the time Berlin was winning the birthday game, and they were winning it every week. And in Scientology, there's a policy that you learn pretty quickly, especially if you join staff. It's in what's called your Staff Status 1 course, which is like the second course you do when you join staff, because everything in Scientology starts with 0 and then goes to 1. And it's called ethics conditions. So if some person or some org is in a high ethics condition, then they can literally get away with murder. So the idea is, as long as you're producing for the organization, they don't care what else you're doing for the organization. So because I was saying like, no, Berlin has got these, got problems and issues, and illegal stuff was happening with immigration, and there was all these kinds of problems, but people in Los Angeles were just saying, yeah, but they're winning the birthday game, so who cares? Like, they don't care. So I just decided before the night before I left Los Angeles, flew back to Toronto. After that much, thinking and reflecting about what was going on, I decided to leave. And I would say, obviously, I had doubts even shortly after I joined Scientology. There was always something that I didn't like, and so forth. But then something always kept driving me back. And then this was kind of the final straw 3 years later. And I was, came back to Toronto. I was then separated from the org because where my mom is, where I grew up is, something like 25 miles, 30 miles from the org. So that was quite a lot of separation. And then my mind started to unravel, went online, found people and watched videos, and then eventually connected with others and told my story on the ex-Scientology message board, which was in late 2008 in September, October, that area. And I was getting validation from people, and I was feeling better. And, that summer was pretty rough, but then eventually, as time goes on, as soon as you distance yourself from all that mess, then, you sort of get back to who you really are. And that happens slowly and slowly. And, it was a struggle, but, overall, the best thing to happen to me was getting dismissed. I think they expected me to go back and to do some ethics stuff, which is why they do these things and why they dismissed me. But it actually ended up just being very much, what they call a blessing in disguise, because I definitely felt that once I was removed from that situation, I was better able to reflect on what had happened, and ultimately, that's why I left. So
And you
ultimately
didn't have
positive.
you didn't have to worry about like a freeloader bill or getting disconnected from, right? Because you didn't have family in Scientology,
No,
right?
no family in Scientology, but I did get a freeloader bill. My freeloader
No.
bill, and yeah, somewhere around $6,000, because I did when I was on staff. So the first thing you do on staff is called staff status 0, and then you do staff status 1 and staff status 2. Those are the basic staff courses. And basically what they are is staff status 0, you're taken around by a person in HCO, which is that's probably more like the human resources department or the communication department. And you're just getting familiar with the org itself. It's really stupid. Literally, you go to the org board. Every org has this massive org board chart, and you touch the org board, and it's like this kind of Scientology stuff. So that's over pretty quickly. But then you go to staff status 1, where you have to learn about things like what you're expected to do as a staff member. This is also when you read a document called Keeping Scientology Working 1, which states that Scientology works 100% of the time if it's applied 100% correctly, which is just nonsense. But when you're in that headspace, you think, yeah, of course, right? And then you learn about how to leave staff if you want to leave, which basically you can't. There's a whole process, but it's BS. I mentioned ethics conditions. You learn all about that. Then you go on to staff status 2. Now, all of those things I just mentioned have a price. So even though you have to take those courses, even though they're mandatory, when anybody leaves staff before their staff contract ends, which is either at 2.5 or 5 years, you owe the org for the money for whatever courses you took. So I had done those 3 courses. Then I had moved on to what was called the Establishment Officer Mini Hat, which is another course. Then I had done a couple other, I started Dianetics extension course for some reason, even though I was already a Dianetics auditor. And then you get, if you do sec checks, and if you have to do any kind of other auditing, like I did something called Method 1 word clearing. So I did a couple hours of both of those things. So I got sec checked. Was the whole thing of me leaving San Francisco. They had to give me these sec checks. So I got a few hours of that. And then I had to get this thing called Method 1 word clearing. Those are I don't know, $1,000 an hour, or maybe they're $500 an hour. It's insane. And so in the end, before I left San Francisco, they gave me a thing of literally like a receipt, and they listed all of the courses that I had done as a staff member. So I guess that was, staff says 1, 2, maybe there's 5 courses, 6 courses in total. And stuff also, by the way, that I started in Berlin. And then these 2 hours of each auditing action. And I think, again, with my memory serving, it was somewhere between maybe 5,000 and 6,000 American dollars. But I haven't paid that back. I have no plan. No, I will never pay that back.
No.
But that's
No.
just, and that's just for me, by the way. If you leave the Sea Org after 40 years, freeloaded bills can be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's really,
Pay
really
back in your
pernicious
next
and
lifetime.
disgusting. Yeah.
You were
it's
on
horrible.
staff though, right? You were on staff, so you weren't in the Sea Org. So how did you
No.
live? How did you have to have another job on the side? I mean,
Well,
they don't provide your food, they don't provide your
no.
room, they don't provide anything. And you work how many hours? 90 hours a week and
Yeah.
get a
90
freeloader debt?
90 plus. Yeah.
And you get a freeloader debt.
And I got a freeloader debt.
Crazy.
Yeah. And I got paid less than €1 an hour, maybe 50 cents an hour,
Insane.
something like that in total. So basically, how I lived was I actually did work a retail job. And because I was living with my parents at the time, this was, of course, before I left for Berlin. And I had also worked in the previous 2 years. I had worked like teaching English, and I had done a bunch of other things. So I'd saved up some money, and that's how I paid my rent every month. So my rent was like €500 a month at the time in Berlin, which is now, now the actual same apartment I think is like €1,500 a month. But I was paying 500. I had a roommate. My roommate was paying, we were both paying 250. Eventually, what happened though is, of course, there's only so much time that you can spend money on without getting it in. So there were a bunch of Sea Org members that actually lived in the apartment with me and my roommate, or my roommate and I, and we were getting basically the Sea Org, like the Sea Org terminals were essentially paying for us. Like the Sea Org was they were giving money from Denmark. They were coming from Denmark to pay for the rent of the Sea Org members, who were then paying me. It was, whatever. So I was getting maybe, again, 100 or 200 euros from the Sea Org. And then that sort of brought down some of the costs. But really, I mean, I was making some weeks, 15 euros a week. Maybe I was making 20, maybe I was making 50. There wasn't enough, but I was grabbing into my bank account and my savings. So was my roommate. My roommate was then working as well. So because he was German, he could do that. But for me, it was just a lose-lose situation overall. And basically, I just spent a lot of money. And eventually, it kind of ran out, to be perfectly honest. And by the last couple of months that I was there, I was relying only on my staff pay and the rent money that was coming from the Sea Org. And it was not enough. And this is where I got into like eating once a day, spending maybe €2 a day on food, which was nothing. I buy vegetables or whatever at the market next door, and then it was a very, very difficult situation. And there were days where I just didn't eat at all. So like you just do what you have to do to survive. But eventually, when I left, I came back, and I just don't know how I got enough money to pay for the flight to San Francisco, to be honest with you, because it would have been at least $400 or $500 at that time. But I guess I had some maybe in my bank at home or something. And then again, I was only making $50 a week there, which was at least enough for me to eat. But then pay my rent was another story, and it just goes on and on and on. It's just, you're right. Nobody can live on being staff, at least in the Sea Org. They work the same amount of hours, but they get berthing and they get food, which is not the best, but at least they get it. When you're on staff, it's sort of like you're expected to be there. But I'll also just go back just quickly, because there is a policy that you do read on your staff status courses, which is called about moonlighting. So when you have a second job that is a part of your staff, position, L. Ron Hubbard writes that if the second job, if your moonlighting job is taking you away from your staff duties, you're supposed to quit that other job and focus on your staff duties, but you're not making anything on staff. So it just doesn't make any practical sense. So it's just ridiculous. It's just all control. And again, how people do it, you somehow survive. I don't really know other to say. You find money somewhere, you borrow it from people, and you just get through each day.
So you were in for 3 years. There's a question on the screen from Rock It Out with Kim D. High. How long was Mark in Scientology, and how long has he been out?
Yeah, so I was in for 3 years. 2 years as a public, 1 year as a staff, and I've been out for 15 years. So past May was 15-year anniversary. May 16 or 17 is when I left, right there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary.
Yes.
Thank you.
That's a
Yeah,
big anniversary.
it's good.
Yeah,
I got to my
definitely.
5th and that was cool, and I got to my 10th and that was cool, and now I'm at 15, so it's great.
It is great.
Good number.
Yeah.
The Creepy
Yeah.
B5 wants to know, question, was fear part of the reason you went back and got pulled back in?
Well, I would say I wasn't really pulled back in at the end of Scientology. One of the reasons I joined staff was because even when 2 years was coming up, I wasn't feeling like I was being able to progress on Scientology's bridge because of the money that was involved and the time that was involved. And so, yeah, a couple times within my first year or two, probably 2 or 3 different times, I would say I had big moments of like wanting to leave or doubt, but I always shoot it aside. And there's something that's just, it sounds so ridiculous now that I say it. But in Scientology, they say if you're doubting Scientology, the best thing to do is to go head in onto like a staff, into the Sea Org or on staff, because that's somehow going to make it, if you're doing it 24/7, it'll somehow change your mind. But even when I joined staff, I was like, what the hell did I just do? Like, it's like, it doesn't, it's just all for their benefit. It's all so nauseously toxic. So that, I wouldn't say fear. I mean, I would say the fear that I had was leaving, because they pump so much fear into you that if you leave, something bad is going to happen, that it's just around the corner. You don't have the tech, so if you get sick, something bad's going to happen. You're going to die. You'll get cancer. You'll go crazy. You'll be a DB, a degraded being, and you won't have the tech to help you. But I never got back in for that reason, because I just decided to leave and fought through the fear. But I can't say that a lot of people, yeah, some people do go back. I mean, I've known people who had left for a few years and somebody pulls them back in. I mean, that happens. It doesn't happen a lot, mind you, but it can happen where, someone is offlines for a little bit and then someone shows up at their door and they get back online because they are afraid. And it's really sad, but and everyone has their own reasons for doing things. But in my case, I was lucky in the sense that once I decided to finally leave after that 3-year period, that no matter what fear and anxiety I had, I just knew that going back was not something I wanted to do and not something I really could do anymore. So I was very, very lucky in that sense as well, and also having no family in it, which was
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Catherine
Yeah.
Gallagher wants to know, question, can a person see what is in their file and contest it if it's wrong? I don't mean to laugh.
Nope.
I know what
No.
hard asses they are, right?
No, it's a no. The ethics officers can see in your ethics folders. I had the what were they called? Treasury folders as the DRM. So only what they call the terminal. Only auditors and case supervisors can look into a pre-clear folder, and then once you get up past clear, only auditors and only CSs. So if you write something, like you might hear people talk about OW write-ups. So when you get into an ethics condition, you have to write down your overts and withholds. Once you submit that, it goes into your folder, and the only person who's going to see that is the ethics officer or future ethics officers to bring it back to you. Hey, remember when you did this and whatever, for guilt and for blackmail in some case, or at least a light version of it, emotional blackmail maybe. But no,
Yeah.
you as just regular Joe Schmo public, and even a staff member or Sea Org member that aren't of those terminals, you have no rights to look into your folders whatsoever.
Wow.
Yeah, not allowed.
Wow. Question, did any of you ever feel relaxed? I assume they meant while you were on staff.
I mean, there were some interesting fun times, I have to tell you. When we had parties, it was actually pretty nice because we weren't working. So, like every moments of being able to watch movies, in these stupid ideal orgs, they have like 3 or 4 small movie theaters. And so you can always, with digital projectors, and so you can always pop in a DVD. So I remember watching, like, a bunch of us watch the movie 300. So that was like kind of fun because, that's a big action movie. We watched it like 3 times in a row one night. And, so there's little fun here and there, but did we ever feel relaxed? I would say probably not, because everyone is just under pressure all the time to do something. So if you're not doing your statistics or you're not out selling something, like we're constantly being watched. And also when they get into your head that you're also being watched, or even if you're not really being watched, kind of think you are, there's paranoia. The Sea Org is watching, everyone's watching, especially when you're in the org. When you're out of the org, you feel the same way. So I don't really think that the words serenity and Scientology go together. I think paranoia and Scientology go together more than serenity does. And so it's definitely not that kind of an organization for sure. It's based and built on fear and mistrust.
Right.
So relaxation is not a part of it at all.
Sorry.
Interesting.
That was an interesting.
Want me to keep with the questions? Go ahead.
I was just going to say that was an interesting thing you noted there, Mark. I was working in the corporate sector around that same time, or right as 300 came out, and company that I was working for was being purchased by another company, and our CEO bought the entire company tickets to see 300. Like, go see this. This is us. We are, we were rah, that kind of thing. Whatever. We will survive, which is completely kind of opposed to the point of 300. They don't. But it's just this. I don't know. There's some sort of indoctrinatory rah that goes along with that movie. That here in the corporate sector, but also here in the cultic corporate sector as well. And so I don't know, it's just an interesting thing that was that seemed to be a tool regardless of where you were to but yeah, it was right to go in there. It was just a hell of a movie, just an exciting film, but apparently there's something that everybody wants you to take from that movie, and regardless of where you're from. I don't know. It seems interesting to me. Maybe it's a completely uninteresting point.
It's interesting.
So every day when you're on staff, we had 3 musters, morning, afternoon, evening, and they used to show, I don't know if anyone here has seen the movie Any Given Sunday, the Oliver Stone movie about football, fictitious football with Al Pacino. There's with Jamie Foxx is in it. I think Dennis Quaid. It's a great movie. Jim Brown, the late great, I think is in it as well. There's a speech that is very famous that Al Pacino makes about winning. He's talking about going inch by inch and all this kind of stuff. It's in there in the locker room. I don't remember in context of the film, but I'm assuming they're either before a game or during a game or whatever. And he's trying to pump up his football players, his members of this fictitious Miami team or whatever it was. And honest to God, we would watch that clip like over and over and over and over. Like, that's what winning is, inch by inch, and grueling, and the Pacino and the screaming. And that was supposed to be motivation for us as well, which is like, you can do it. And this is like the pep talk, and people would get all excited and clap their hands. And then you go off to host and, call people, harassing them and shuffling papers, and, with computers not working, and with printers from the 50s, and sending telexes and mimeograms. Like, it was like this completely divorced from reality. And eventually people just got so sick of it, because we watched that day in and day out for months, that people would just be like, at the end of it, they were like, whatever, like it was that was our motivation. Pacino screaming at his football players, which I still haven't seen that movie. I would like to go back and see that movie, because to put it in context, but because I've seen that one scene probably, I don't know, 100 times, I'm a little bit like I can kind of feel the feelings coming back and reminding me of my staff days. But anyway, it was just interesting. That's a whole other thing.
So speaking of, I don't know, we're not really speaking of it, but 2D, right? Aaron wants to know, how was dating in Scientology?
Non-existent for most of us. And if people did date, they dated either within the pool, of staff. So it was very common for staff members to hook up with each other and marry and whatnot. And in fact, I probably know at least that I can think of 4, 5, 6 couples that when I was there, dated and were married. And of course, there was always the one guy every girl wanted to go with, and the one girl every guy wanted to go with. I will make the statement, of course, there are no homosexual or LGBTQ relationships in Scientology, so it's all heteronormative. If you have those kinds of feelings, you are quickly dismissed. So yeah, no homosexual, no experimentation with that, no transgendered individuals or non-binary, whatever. But it was always like that. There was always one guy all the girls wanted to date, and there's always one girl all the guys wanted to date. But it's pretty much non-existent if you want to go outside of that, because the first pool is you date within the staff members, and then after that, the only other pool is to date other Scientologists that are coming in to do services, which is an even smaller pool. And then beyond that, to date a non-Scientologist or to just go online. I mean, at the time we didn't have dating apps, but of course there were still dating websites. You're not, working 90 hours a week. No partner who is not a Scientologist is going to understand that. Plus, in Germany, Scientology obviously has a very bad rep and so forth. So yeah, it just doesn't happen. It really doesn't. You just pick from what you can and do your best with other Scientologists.
That's
Interesting. It is.
Yeah, and a lot of again, a lot of interpool dating, I guess, if I have to say anything. People date, the same people multiple times and whatnot.
All right.
Mhm.
So rock it out with Kim D. High wants to know, question, how long does the average sec check take?
Great question, Kim.
Yeah.
It's a great question.
And how much does it cost?
Well, it's per hour. So I think it's at least 200, 500, maybe an hour. I can't remember now. At least when I was there. So a sec check doesn't really have an average time. When you go into an auditing session, if you're doing the actual bridge or you're doing Dianetics, the maximum amount of time it will take is 2.5 hours, because that's how they divide their blocks into their day. So you're either on course or you're doing auditing for 2.5 hours. But a security check can take as little time as possible or as long as time as possible. And I think I did at least an hour or two. So in some cases, it takes hours. I mean, especially if the person doesn't want to give the information and they're being kind of stubborn. But again, it can take 10 minutes maybe, or it could take hours. It could go across days. I mean, it's absolutely horrendous. In my case, the first sec check that I got was in Berlin. Second sec check and the third sec check I got was in San Francisco. The second time it was probably close to an hour. And then I guess the next time it was probably a half an hour. And so in total, half an hour in Berlin, an hour, and then another half hour was 2 hours. And I estimate it probably was at least $500 to $1,000 for that. And you basically go in, you hold the cans, so it looks like an auditing session, but you're being asked essentially what haven't you said, or what are you hiding? And it's very, very more vindictive than an auditing session. You can be blamed for certain things. When I went in there, and I can give you guys an example. So I was on the cans, and they were going through my folders. And when I first got into Scientology, I had written, as I mentioned earlier, that I had gone onto Google. I Googled Scientology, and I had forgot this, but it was in the folder that apparently I had seen a website. And on this website was all the books of L. Ron Hubbard in PDF files. Now, that's something that Scientology doesn't do because that's free, right? So they don't digitize their stuff, and they don't put it on PDF for public consumption. So that was why it took an hour, because they were asking me if I could remember the URL to that website. But I had looked at that URL in like 1998, and this was like 2007 or whatever, or maybe it was 2000. Like I didn't remember. And so the whole time I was just saying, like, I don't know what the URL was. I'm not sure. But they didn't believe me because it was in my head. So I was supposed to just come up with any URL. And I just kept saying, I don't remember what the URL was. I just kept saying that. And that's why it took an hour, because I couldn't remember one thing. And then when I went back the next day, I guess I gave some bullshit answer. and then they
Yeah.
moved on to something else, and it took a half an hour. We went out, but like, yeah, what I don't know. Where did you find
Yeah.
it? What was it? Who wrote the website? And you're supposed to give all these answers, but like as I said, I had no clue, no idea what from almost a decade earlier what one website I went to one time.
So they'll never. I don't want to. So so they won't believe you don't remember. I mean, even after
That's right.
a day and a half, you have to give them some sort of fake answer to be able to move on. Okay.
Yes, because the idea is you get indoctrinated into Dianetics. And in Dianetics, they say that the mind is like a recording machine. And so they believe that everything that is recorded will go to your reactive mind. And as you're becoming more of a Scientologist, your reactive mind is getting kind of stronger. That's not really the term they use, but you get these things called perceptives. I forgot the word anyway. And so they think that it's there. So if it's there, they know that it's there, even though it was 10 years ago. They don't, I forgot is not an answer for them because it's in your reactive mind. So it is there. So then again, that's why they were saying to me, you know what the URL is, just tell me what the URL is. And if you say, I don't know, it's not because you don't know. You've done Scientology, you've gone through auditing, you know how the mind works. So you know that you know, even though you don't know. And I know that sounds weird, but that's how they kind of, put it to you. And then, yeah, you've got to eventually say something like, oh, it was www.lronhubbardsanidiot.com. Okay. And then it's done, and then
Wow.
it's like, okay, fine, like whatever. You pull something
That's
out of your ass and
for
then you move on. But that's the
So
whole
how-
thing is it's there,
So what is the Scientological view of belief of like Alzheimer's or dementia, where
They would say, go ahead, Deborah. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
that's it. I mean, I know it's not completely the same thing, but it's obviously somebody who has dementia. I don't know. I guess I'd just be curious to that if that's something you would know.
Well, anything like that, any sort of cognitive memory, even things like autism, things like this, it's all deduced by the reactive mind. So that's just whatever they say. So somebody has autism, it's the reactive mind. Alzheimer's, it's the reactive mind. Even if a Scientologist doesn't have a reactive mind and they still got Alzheimer's, it's probably because they pulled it in themselves. It's a lot of victim blaming.
Okay.
And so their answer would just be that it was something that the person did to pull it in, or they're dramatizing a past life because they're choosing to forget. Like they would just come up with horrible, misinformed answers that don't get anywhere, but they circle around to a confirmation bias that Scientology and Dianetics know everything. So they would just give some kind of excuse, because you're right. If it's a cognitive memory issue, the person literally doesn't remember, they would still say, yeah, but their reactive mind is there, or maybe their reactive mind is taking over, or, some stupid nonsensical answer that they would just pull out of their ass, and then everyone would just agree with it, and then that's it, and then you move on to something else.
Lovely. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Awful, very awful, mind you. So
Yeah.
no humility really in Scientology, no empathy.
Well, Marilyn's muted.
Sorry.
What were you saying,
I had to
Marilyn?
cough. Oh, I was just nothing. No, I was just saying. I was just wondering, like, you, of course, you did believe, because you wouldn't have stayed there for 3 years. But I was just wondering, like, when you left, was it more of, well, I don't believe this anymore, or just I can't take this anymore? Or I'm just wondering, like, the process, because a lot of times you hear, and even in my case, it was the abuses that made me just blow out of there. And then I still had a lot of the beliefs in my head, even for many years. It took a long time for me to process and deprogram, as they say, So I'm just wondering what that process looked like for you.
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I don't think I've actually been asked that before. So thank you very much. Because yeah, when you get into Scientology, you start to believe in things like past lives and that you can recover those past lives and that there's an evidence and a science and all this kind of stuff. And I would say those things were not as strong to me as this idea of the technology, I guess. Like, it's so weird because I know in many religions, faith is like number one and practice might be number two. Not all religions are like that, but there are religions where practice is number one and faith is number two. And I think Scientology falls under that in the sense like, yes, their faith is all kind of ambiguous, but it's really this practice that they're doing. It's really you going on course, you're getting your auditing. And then at a certain point, all that sort of Xenu stuff and all the OT levels kind of takes over. So there's just continuity. But I think Scientology, like, I just remember kind of thinking, like, past lives, I sort of felt that I got other explanations for them. Like, for example, I did have past life recoveries in Dianetics, but I quickly was able to discern that between my imagination and actually going through past life regression and finding the sort of things that debunk past life regression and what is the brain actually doing, because past life regression is in hypnosis and whatever has been around for a long time, but it's also been debunked for a long time. So what does that mean? Why was I doing that? Was I really trying? I'm a historian, so it's like, am I really trying to live in the past? Like, am I pulling stuff out from what I already know? Is it like a dream? Like, I know sometimes I have dreams. I'm like, why were those people in my dreams? It's like weird. Like, why? Why was I there? Why was I doing these things? You don't really know why. It's kind of a mystery, but there is some explanation for it, at least from a cognitive level. And so I think when it comes to the beliefs of Scientology, sort of those, we call it Eastern mystic kind of beliefs, they're not, I mean, they're not really why people are there necessarily. At least in the beginning, they're pretty secondary to, we need to get everyone becoming a Scientologist so they can clear the planet. So really the goal is like to go clear. And yeah, clear and past lives have to do with it. There's some mystical stuff going on. And then eventually you learn about Xenu and all this kind of stuff. But it's a little hard to explain because it's not like, you have to necessarily have this strong faith in this one particular thing other than maybe past lives in order to do Scientology. And when Scientology kind of crumbles, like today, I don't believe in past lives, but I could be wrong, So it's like now I'm more confused, if anything, after Scientology on what it is. Like, I might not believe it, but I'm still confused. And so that kind of went away a little bit and things like this. But other ideas, Scientology doesn't really have much to say other than you're a spiritual being and you've lived many past lives. They don't really have a particular definition on, quote unquote God. They don't really have dietary restrictions too much. Like, it's odd. It's, in my opinion, it's very much a facade of a religion. And of course a religion can also be a cult and it could also be destructive. They're not mutually exclusive, but I think it's just not like the other world religions, or not like other religions where there seems to be more definitive things in that religion that why people from the outside could look in and see that it's a religion. Scientology doesn't really have a lot of those things. So it's just strange. But I will say that, yeah, I kind of abandoned my Scientological beliefs once I started to realize some of the manipulation that was going on, and, haven't really returned to, because some ex-Scientologists will return to a kind of new age or mystical kind of idea, and maybe because they got in, that's why they got into Scientology, because they were already involved in that kind of idea, maybe Buddhism, Hinduism, new age kind of stuff. I kind of got into it a little bit when I was studying Buddhism, but then things just kind of went on, and I sort of abandoned that sort of set of beliefs and changed them and so forth. So hopefully, sorry, hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. No,
Yep.
it definitely does, because it's like a journey, right? I mean, you said that
Yeah.
you came out, you kind of figured out like what you believed and studied, and you said that you're a historian, and that probably helped you along the way. But I have a question
Yeah.
from OBG Foster. Mark, have you read Martin Gardner's Debunking of Past Lives based on math?
I'm not sure. I did read a book by Martin Gardner in which he debunked Dianetics. I forget the name of that book, but it was authored in the 50s. So if it's a part of that book, then I have. If there's a separate book, then I haven't, because that's the only one that I have read from
Mhm.
him. And that also was a long time ago. That was probably 2008 or 9. So my memory is not quite good on that. But again, if it's part of that book where he debunks Dianetics, then I'm sure I went through it.
Right.
Nice.
Steveo, not Steveo. Now, you're like my children. I'm always calling my
Yeah.
kids the other name.
That's funny.
Dad, you okay?
Yeah, doing good.
Okay.
Drinking my coffee.
Okay. I saw something swipe across your screen. I'm like, what was that?
Oh,
It was little.
yeah.
It was little Chad acting up, I think.
Little
Yeah, I
Chad
think it
was wiping
was.
the dust. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little OCD with, there was dust on the camera up top there.
Oh. Yeah. Oh. Okay.
Oh,
Buster.
this was his edited book. Then no, I didn't read that one.
So
Whatever,
he
again,
edited-
whatever that book was that he read, which debunked Dianetics, that's the only book I've read from Martin Gardner. So I don't think that, not necessarily the New Age. I don't believe I have read that one, but I will put it on my list. I have a large list of
All right.
books that I need to get to, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good.
Makes me feel like I have to actually finish Dianetics to get through to be able to read the
Right.
debunking books.
Oh, jeez.
Right. Selena.
Yeah, Dianetics is brutal.
Go ahead. Yeah, I think I bought a copy in like 88 or 9 because of the volcano commercial and everything. I think me and my friends, we bought one at Walden's Books at the mall. We never read it. I don't know.
I was
just like the cover.
Yeah, right. And the commercials were cool. That was right
Yeah.
at the time, or it was still around at the time where I was kind of in a very self-help mood, and I'm like, oh, this sounds like self-help, and somehow, so I bought it, couldn't get through it then, lost that copy, bought another copy, decided, much later on, went, I still can't get through that. And somewhere in the middle there, I ended up becoming a fan. I'll say a fan of Tony Robbins, and went that route for a while. But very susceptible to that kind of thing for quite a while. And yeah, for different reasons. But it was kind of more of a business. How do I make my money thing? And yeah, I'm much happier now. So
Good.
much happier away from that.
It's a lot of pressure that
Oh,
self-help
sorry.
people put on you because they kind of imply that there's a way to do something. And if you're not doing it exactly like it, then there's a lot of pressure. And this is the same with Dianetics. Like if you're not doing exactly the way we tell you, and all these other people have experienced the same for doing exactly the same way, and there's so much pressure, and you ultimately fail. And if you fail at it, then it's your fault. You don't need any of that, man. Just build your own route.
No, 100%. And it's funny because I think Scientology definitely does this the same way with some of their kind of those starter classes. The little stuff, the common sense stuff, that actually works. So you start and you're like, oh, I'm seeing it working. This is, as they're telling me, as they're putting that pressure on me, to you got to keep doing it this way. You're like, well, why wouldn't I? It's working. It's I see something, and then you're in it, and it's that whole thing is pretty much gone, and you're just a walking zombie in that world. So whichever world, right? A Tony Robbins world, a Scientology world, fundamental Christian world. I mean, it's kind of how those things play out. As you see a little bit of reward, and you buy into it, and then they've got you on that path, and with no way off.
I try not to read too much stuff because I feel like I'll get sucked in even knowing what this is all about. You know.
That's absolutely right, Marcus. A happy zombie.
Marcus.
That's
Hey,
right.
Marcus.
Hey, Marcus.
Welcome. Good to see you. Oh,
Absolutely.
This would be the ultimate. Just got to say, to me, the ultimate panel. No offense, Marilyn and Chad. The ultimate panel would be Mark and Marcus. Just bam, right? That's just. I mean, that's like the power panel. Love you
we
both.
can have all the Marks. There's lots of Marks.
Let's get Hedley in here too. Let's get Fisher. Let's just. I'll change my name to Mark just so I can be there. It would be great. No, seriously. I mean, there's so much. Oddly, the knowledge of the Marks and the Mark and Marcuses is huge.
True.
So
it's true.
Absolutely.
On the mark. Yeah.
On the mark. I love it.
Hey, Marcus. I know Marcus is good friends with Doug because I know he does quite a few things with Doug, but we're only I guess we're separated once by Doug, so we'll have to actually go on a call one day, Marcus, and talk.
Do that.
But that is a good idea, Denver Steve-O, to have
the 1 degree of Dougology. That's what that would be? Yes. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it's just like sense. This, like a think tank power panel. So. And we'll get on that, everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, this one, I got to put this one up. Clearwater Claire. Oh, Clearwater Claire, the Taylor. I'm fascinated by this conversation. The psychology behind how people get hooked into a cult that offers self-help strategy is interesting to me because I have come close. I think many of us have.
Yeah.
Many of us have.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it could be in a lot of different.
That self-help stuff is, some of it's okay. I mean, here and there, if it's based in psychology, if it's based in evidence, fine. But there's a lot of it that's just based in. Everyone has very similar insecurities, and people want to make more money. People want to have better relationships. They want to communicate better. These are things that people want to do, and there are strategies that people can learn that will help you. But at the same time, there's a plethora of toxic nonsense like Scientology where they're just controlling you and trying to mold you into, what they might call a Ron bot, which is what you basically become. You basically become like Ron. And, that's not healthy at all. So if any kind of psychology or self-help is really freeing you and, you are able to actually build better communications and stuff like that, especially through a good licensed psychologist or whatnot, always go with that route. But unfortunately, there's always, bad eggs everywhere. And even in something that's trying to promote the fact that you're trying to better yourself as an individual and maybe become a better individual or a better husband, father, daughter, wife, whatever, business owner, coworker, just that alone, that intention can be manipulated and taken away from you, and it's incredibly tragic, and that's Scientology in a nutshell, basically, because they offer courses on all that stuff. Hey, you want to improve your marriage? There's a course. You want to learn how to spend money better? There's a course. You want to find a partner? There's a course. You have problems with your business? They've got courses and all of it is just, in the end, it's just give us more money.
Wow. Of course.
And like you guys said, those beginning courses are at least somewhat helpful.
Yeah.
Yep. I found them.
And for everybody here, 30,000 Ron bots and counting this fall on TLC. Sounds like a great show, doesn't it?
Yeah,
just
that
Ron
does.
bots.
Ron bots.
Or the Ron bots
are
the evil monsters. Yes.
Lots of Ron bots.
I love that term.
Yeah, it's an oldie but a goodie. That's been around for a little while, but I just use that, of course, flippantly, but and facetiously. But yeah, you do kind of become like that. You become like Ron, and it's just like, but Ron wasn't like Ron, so big shit anyway. It's awful.
Yeah.
Just ladies and gentlemen, keep your dental plan.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he smoked 100 Cools cigarettes every day. L. Ron Hubbard. 100 and cools.
Jeez.
Isn't that
Cools of not
five
just
packs?
yeah,
Unfiltered?
5 packs.
Jeez.
Wow.
Unfiltered cool cigarettes, which are not just menthol, but they have some of the highest tar quantity of all the
Jeez.
cigarettes
Yeah.
brands in America, which tar, of course, probably why, maybe he got a stroke when he was in his 70s. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. But smoking 100 cool cigarettes is quite
You'd be
something.
surprised he made
Yeah.
it that long, right?
I didn't even
70s.
know it was
Yeah,
possible.
honestly, heart attack, stroke, aneurysms, whatever. I mean, lung cancers, just
Yeah.
emphysema. Like the fact that he got a stroke is like you throwing darts at a dartboard and it hitting like a disease, and it just happened to be a stroke when it missed everything else that has to do with smoking that many cigarettes a day. It's
Right.
just horrible.
Right.
It is.
All right, can we answer this question? I don't know if we know the answer, but if anybody does, it would be
Yeah.
Mark. Slightly unrelated, is there a list of Scientology websites somewhere? You have to scour the
I'm not as far as Scientology based ones like pro Scientology, it's all through Scientology.org. And then if they have front groups, so then it's called the Association of Better Living and Education. And their groups are Narcanon, Criminon, Applied Scholastics, Youth for Human Rights, Drug Free Marshals, Volunteer Ministers, and a handful of others. If you're talking about that, if you're talking about counter or anti-Scientology websites, there's no collective website that has all the websites. Normally people find like Operation Clambake, which is Xenu.net. There's obviously tons more now. Mike Rinder has his blog, and Tony Ortega has his blog, and the Headleys do stuff like. So it's a lot of everywhere that you kind of have to find. But mainly, I think the best source is actually YouTube. Is just to go through the SPTV and find out, if the person who has this channel also has a website. So it depends on what we're talking about. If you're talking about pro or against, then it can be a little hard to find one resource that lists all of the resources within it.
That's a pretty good answer to me.
Yep.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yep.
And
Good stuff.
Shauna had posted. I mean, I know it's
Yeah.
a little egocentric here because it's really just us, but the SPTV channels can be found. Let's hear. My mouse always is moody here. So there is that's okay. So yeah, so Shauna's got the list of the Discord link to when the SPTV channels post or go live. So that's and then I think one of the I'm trying to remember, somebody's got a list of all of the SPTV channels, and I want to say that's hiding on is that
Doug,
listed in Doug's community
think Doug has
tab?
it.
It might be.
Yeah.
Doug has it. Does Anhata have it? Anhata has a
Anhata
list
does,
as well.
Yep.
So as far as that goes, but as far as the everything, yeah, that's a big list, and yeah. Oh, thank you, Slant. Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
So the other part, I'm not an IT person at all. I just use computers. I have no idea how they work. Sites run by Scientology. Again, I'm not sure. I will say what I know about Scientology online is, again, they have their big website. Then they have websites for all the different organizations. Then each Church of Scientology is supposed to also have not just a website, but have maybe a Facebook page or something like this. In addition to that, though, all the anti-critic websites, so the websites that go after the Headleys, Mike Rinder, my late great friend Gary Scarf had one, Graham Berry, a great friend of mine, Aaron Smith-Levin, Chris Shelton, etc. They're all basically Scientology websites, although they say that they're by concerned members of Scientology groups, but it really comes down to them being part of Scientology. So it's just a really big list. And again, as far as cookies and stuff like that, I just don't have any information, unfortunately. You'd have to find someone who's really familiar with that. But there's a lot of different Scientology or Scientology related websites, again, because they use people Like they use individual Scientologists to create these fronts and to create these pages, and and they'll have different IP addresses so it doesn't trace back to the church. So it's like a web, and essentially it's very hard to get to the center. In that case, other than Scientology.org, then you know it's a Scientology website.
Danny made a great comment. Danny Crook. It would be amazing to bring the cult down for online cookies, like getting Capone for tax evasion. So true.
Nice. Yeah. It'd be funny.
I want him dead. I want his family dead. I want his house burned to the ground. Anyway,
Yeah.
Untouchables. I love that movie.
Yep.
That's funny.
That's the
That'd
Chicago way.
Would that be David Miscavige with a baseball bat walking around the table? Sounds like he's already done that a bit, though, right? Yeah.
I want his
Sounds
money.
like
I want his orgs. I want the Ideal Org Project built up. Yeah, exactly. That's the Scientology way. Yeah.
Absolutely true.
Oh, God. Great movie, though, man. I got to watch that.
Yeah, you've just reminded me. I got to watch that again. That was, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's
Andy
right.
Garcia.
It's funny.
Hold on. Yeah. Saw a me thing here. Denver Steveo. I think we should get Enron on the case. I bet they could take. Yes,
that's funny.
Very true for his new project.
Yeah.
Enron will get him.
Yeah. Totally.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh, so it smells like poo. That's right.
Nice.
That's right. That's right, Kim. So true. Found a cool article with Martin Gardner's top 10 works. Might be worth a look. Yeah, absolutely, Shauna.
Oh,
that would be great.
Yep. Thank you, Freezy New Projects.
Thank you, Freezy New Project. It's thank you. Hey, here's Marcus. I wanted to show my support. Mark, my info is available on my YouTube about section. So cool.
Yeah. Very good.
I will. Thank you so much, Marcus. Yeah.
Get together, guys.
Yeah.
We'll melt some faces and blow some minds.
Ooh.
Absolutely.
That just sounds good.
That's what we're here for.
So I apologize, Mark, for missing the first few minutes here.
No worries.
I don't know if you talked about it. Tell us what you've been doing since leaving Scientology. I mean, how have you filled out the last 15 years?
Well, I left in May of 2008. I went back to Canada, worked a little bit, and then in January of 2009, I moved to Los Angeles and I started a program at Santa Monica College, which actually was really great because I got to meet a lot of ex-members. Like I met Jason Begay, which was really great. I met the Headleys. I did interviews with journalists. It's about 3 of them. One came from Germany, which is the journalist from public television. Anyway, it was really cool. I met a lot of great people. Graham Barry, this was really great. And then I left in July of 2011 once I finished my program. I would have liked to have stayed, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get work. But then the preceding couple years were a little bit rough. I tried to go to university a couple times, didn't really work. I injured myself on a job, so that took me out of commission for a couple of years. But around 2017, I moved to the Niagara Falls area in Ontario, Canada, and went to a university in southwestern Ontario. And I finally did my BA. I graduated in 2020. Actually 2019 for my 3-year, and then 2020 or 2021, I forget now. One of those years, 2020, I think I actually graduated with my 3-year, and then anyway, who cares? It doesn't matter. By 2021, by the spring of 2021, I had my 3-year and my 4-year degree. And then I moved to Budapest in September 2021. And originally I took a year-long intensive course to learn Hungarian, and which is incredibly hard. By the way, it's I love it because it's the language of my father and my grandparents, and they're no longer with us. So I really wish I could actually have conversations with them. But I do have family that are here who I do have conversations with, so it's awesome. But it is hard. And just since last September of 2022, I've been doing my master's, and doing my master's degree in history and yeah, humanities issues and stuff like this. And so really, like, the last 15 years has kind of gone back and forth. I had a few years there that were just really, really not good. I couldn't work. I was really struggling to get into university and trying to do that. But then since like 2017, I've been more focused, which has been a great thing. And yeah, I've just been plugging along, doing regular stuff like we all do. Life does go on.
Yeah.
Scientology went on. The people that I knew, their lives went on. And in 2018, I actually was lucky enough where I went back to Europe, and I hadn't been back for a decade. And I was told, I met someone who I actually was on staff with in Berlin, who's out of Scientology, and he told me that another person who I knew very well when I was on staff. Her name is Sabrina, and she's from Switzerland. And immediately got in touch with her to say hello. She's been on Aaron's channel, and in fact, her story was first. She mentioned me, and then mine came out second because we both worked in Berlin at the time. As Sabrina was in much longer than me, but she had been out by 2018. Anyway, little things like this of just meeting people again that are that have similar experiences is very cathartic. And I've just been doing that. Basically, just again, life goes on. It's a day-to-day thing, and
Sure.
I took a long time to get over anger issues, and definitely had struggles as an undergrad because it's a generational thing. I cannot communicate with the kids these days. I don't know what they're talking about. They are literally speaking another language, but that's pales in comparison to being on staff in Scientology. So
Yeah.
whatever. And then now I'm just lucky. I'm learning Hungarian. I'm also learning Romanian. I'm learning Russian, and then I'm doing a lot of studying and research and editing and things like this. So things are just moving on slowly, and I'm very, very happy with leaving Scientology and being able to have these opportunities. And yeah, I want to do history more and another program in the future and so on. So, hopefully one day get into an actual career doing something history wise. And, till then, just writing a lot of essays, basically.
Got it. Wow. Clearwater Claire says something that I was thinking as you were telling the story here. You clearly needed that time to find your real self. Well done for getting through and moving on, Mark. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's you left a cult for God's sakes. Who knows what it's gonna take, right?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, again, whether you're in for 3 years or 40 years or 10 years or 1 year or a month, like the time doesn't really matter. It's the damage that's done. So, sometimes it's like, yeah, okay, I think to myself, yeah, I was only in it for 3 years, but like I probably did a lot more than most people did in those 3 years, especially because it was just crunched into such a small amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
I went and traveled to different orgs. I was on staff, this insane schedule. So I think the 3 years is just the time period. I think the actual experience is probably a lot longer than that. And so that takes time. And so I would say, definitely the first 5 years were probably the most difficult. Maybe the first even 7 or 8 years were also very difficult. As I said, really, once I started to get to university and started to learn and meet people and stuff, which was 2017. So it was 9 years after I left. Then it started again to get, a little better and a little better and a little better. So it happens in chunks and periods of time. And as you get away from that kind of toxic environment and you have time to heal and talk and meet people, it really contributes very healthily, especially meeting people that that I knew that were Scientologists, because if they're still in, they will never talk to me. So that also goes in the back of your head. Like, I had been on staff with a lot of people, and the idea that they would never, like, these people would never talk to me again for the rest of my life. And then all of a sudden there were 2 people who I talked to, and it was like, well, that's 2 is more than 0. So it becomes a reality where you're like, well, yeah, like when people leave, they are going to want to talk out and experience things, and then things get better, because really Scientology is an all or nothing type situation. So it's like either they're talking to me because I'm in good standing, or they're not talking to me because I'm not in good standing. And again, just to talk to someone and be like, yeah, remember this person, remember that person, what happened to this person, do you remember this event? Yeah, well, what happened? Well, this is my perspective on that event. Well, this is the other side of it. And then going on and comparing notes just was very therapeutic.
Good. So we have a super chat. Thank you, or a super sticker. I mean, thank you very much. And I think
Thank
that
you.
was on Stevo's channel.
Free
Nice.
Xenu.
Free Xenu project. You want to read that, Stevo?
Oh, hey, I know how Denver Steveo uses the contributions, and happy to help how I can. Although I'm going to be cutting back on super chats and super stickers, and using the money donate directly to Mike for now. Absolutely,
Absolutely.
I'm as you know, I'm donating any super chats, any super stickers, any sort of monetization that comes to my channel directly to Mike. I know Chad's doing. Chad is, it's within this month period, I think, and but yeah, that's absolutely, send it directly to Mike at mikerendersblog.org, and then find the big blue donate button, or I think mikerendersblog.org/donate will also take you to the same spot. And yeah, let's donate right to Mike. Let's let's get him. Even though he and Christy have said that they're good for now, I've been in a situation similar, certainly not as bad as Mark had, or as Mike had it, or has it. But you sometimes you think you're good for now, and something comes up, and sometimes you're a little prideful and don't want to ask until you need it. But let's be proactive here. As I've said before, and thank you, Julie, for putting that up. As I've said before, as I'll continue to say through the end of time, it's Mike fucking Rinder, guys. It's let's do what we can to help him and Christy and their family out. So, but absolutely understandable. Free Xenu project, go right to Mike, and I'm just picking up the other stuff. So,
and Denver, this one's for you too.
From Kelly Copter.
Yes.
Our favorite Kelly Copter.
Our girl.
I love you, Kelly Copter. I think Kelly, I think your sweatshirt is coming. I think your sweatshirt's going to be here today. I'm excited. I'm going to get to wear my OT3 hoodie. So, but Kelly says, Denver, just wanted to say again how amazing your video and card for Mike was. Brilliant. Thank you, Kelly.
Yes, and if anyone wants a sweatshirt or a t-shirt, go to, I think it's www.kellycopter.com, and she's got some new merch, and she got some great merch. Started the merch. Yeah. That's right. And it's like the story of OT3 in little pictures. It's just super cool.
And Denver Stevo's the design process for Denver Stevo's merch the designing is in process now. So we'll have some awesome Denver Stevo merch coming out soon. But yes, check out Kelly's. She's got some fantastic stuff. It's in the Kelly Copter flair, so it's it's fun. I mean, but it does its thing. I grabbed the OT3 sweatshirt for now, and Kelly, I'll be back. If for nothing else, I'll be back for those personalized messages saying, "Hey, Denver Stevo, thanks for buying a hoodie." So, nice. and besides that,
he wants to hear that accent.
I do. Absolutely, 100%.
First person. Oh,
nice.
Am I? Oh my God, I'm the first person to get a hoodie. Yeah, I'm a hoodie fan. So, nice. I'll not only will I take some pics of me out and about in the July heat wearing my hoodie, but I'll definitely be wearing it on the air too. So
Awesome.
yeah, and like I say, I think it's coming today. If not today, it's it'll certainly be here very soon. So
Steveo flying poo shirt. Yes, Clearwater
Nice.
Cheryl.
oh, the poo's got to fly. Oh, I hadn't thought about that. I'll get on that.
Angel, the angel, right?
That's right. Yeah. So yeah, Angel Poo will be flying. So
Excellent.
So, Mark, thank you so much for coming. Is there anything you
thank you.
wanted to say that didn't, or any questions for us, Nutty Never Ends, or anything? I know you reached out to us. So.
Yeah, no, I'm happy that to be on. I thank you very much. And yeah, it is very interesting when we meet never ends that are very passionate about this, because that's exactly what it means. You were never in, never involved, maybe never had anyone. Or if you did, like maybe you read a book or something. But I just always appreciative of anybody, whether you were in or not, doesn't matter, and just always appreciative to, talk. And hopefully, it went okay. My pizza arrived, so I had to duck out there for a few minutes. I apologize, but things happen. But yeah, it's always really cool, and this community that you also have gathered on your YouTube channel as part of SP TV, and I'm just again just very thankful. And your after parties are great, and I do want to say, hopefully, if the time works out, if you do another 10-hour telethon or something, I would like to somehow be involved in it.
Yeah, whenever you guys
things
want,
happen that way, to come on and say some funny stuff, and then do that.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
we whenever you want to do this again, just inbox one of us.
Yeah, hopefully again, I'm about 6 hours ahead from Eastern Standard Time, so hopefully it'll work in some capacity, but I'll make it work. So
yeah, the people learned a lot from this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We got a marquee guest on. So, it's I think whether we do it early, whether we do it late, and it's earlier for you as we'll make things work. Yeah, absolutely. Yep. It's not an issue at all. And we just have fun. We have fun. Oops, I've got dogs barking back there, but I'll mute in a second. But yeah, a lot of fun pulling it. Hopefully we're asking questions in a different way, and certainly we're getting information that's just fantastic. And Janice, you'll be on too.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anyone's
Absolutely.
welcome. Yeah, we already had Mark on with his Hawaiian shirts. All the guys are wearing Hawaiian shirts. And
yeah, that was fun. That was fun.
Right, Chad?
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, that was great. It was
right, Janice.
Yeah, I've got a new Hawaiian shirt for the next time we have Mark Fisher on. Yeah, I think it's going to be cooler. I think it's going to be, I had a little polyester thing going the last time, and it got a little itchy. But I think I'm ready for the next one, and I think I'm gonna get him in the color game too. So we're just saying that.
Yeah, Janice, you're welcome anytime. If you want to, we'll even we'll make space for you. I mean, with Mark, what did you message Chad a couple days ago, and we're like, yeah, we'll just make a live.
Yep, we seen each other in Doug's live. The comments, I think, didn't we?
Yeah, I know that's where where I've chatted with Mark too. So absolutely.
Yeah. So we got your story. I mean, a lot, probably 90% of everybody has seen you before, Mark, and kind of knows you, but it was good to have the groundwork and your story, and maybe told from a little bit of a different angle. I've seen talks with Doug with you about other religions, and those are really fascinating. And so you're welcome back anytime. I mean, we can take it from there and pick your brain about other religions or cults, or
Sure.
So you're welcome.
And I love to pick Clearwater Chad's brain about the Buffalo Bills, but maybe that's another story for another time. But
yeah, definitely next. I don't really, just a full disclosure. I mean, of course I root for the hometown, but I don't really know much about sports.
No
I love
worries.
the fact
we can just
that
talk about their losses in the 90s.
I love the fact that O.J. Simpson actually played for that Buffalo Bills in the 70s, though.
Oh, yes. Oh, thank you, Clearwater Cheryl. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Well, we'll let you eat your pizza. Hope you have,
It's all good.
but
Before
this
it
was
gets too
great.
cold, right? It's only an
Yeah.
hour
Yeah.
cold, but yeah.
Whatever. It's cool.
Yeah.
It's all good. This was more important than pizza.
Thank you. Very cool.
Yeah, this is great.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
And,
Yeah. Thank you
everybody,
so
put a 1 in the chat if you would like to see Marcus come, or Marcus. Marcus, I was thinking about Marcus. Mark come back, and we'll take it from there. We can talk about tons of stuff, about
much.
Yep.
Of course.
mind control and different aspects of cults and different religions. I loved your talk on the different types of agnosticism, atheism, just different things like that. That's very, very fascinating. Very
That whole series
fascinating.
with Doug.
Oh,
was
look at all the
fantastic.
ones. See all the
and
ones.
Janice, of course.
And
And
Janice. 1 for Janice. Yes.
Yep.
There's an infinite
Janice.
amount. There's an infinite number of panel things that can be done with with the wonders of Mark, Janice, the other Mark, the other Mark, the other Mark, the other Mark, Matt.
All the Marks.
Every single person says
Who did
one,
I miss? Did I say Marcus? I said Marcus. Yeah. We can make numerous panel works, and yeah. So
There we go.
Thank you, everybody.
All ones.
very cool. Yeah, absolutely.
show.
Yeah, thanks for all the ones.
Tons of excitement.
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, it's also
All right,
great to
everybody.
new set of fans.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Well, we'll hopefully see you soon. And Monday night
Absolutely.
after Aaron's main event, there's a rumor that he's talking about jumping on the live stream with us, but we'll see. I know he's probably going to get really hungry after his live, but
Well, he could
Yeah,
jump in and
so-
out. Though. Yeah, he could.
yeah. And
Oh, yeah.
I think we got to do a drinking game because he
Yeah.
said that we drink on Monday nights. I was like, that's usually when we do the Fridays or the Saturdays, which we're doing it early today, but we
We
can
won't
drink.
tell him. Yeah, we'll drink. Yeah, there's always.
I'll
just
drink.
not
It's a Monday.
Yep.
If Aaron's there, yeah, absolutely,
Yep.
absolutely, bourbon it
Yeah.
up. So
Oh, yes,
right,
bourbon. Hmm.
Ooh, there we go.
Yep.
I usually have a giant wine glass the size of my head.
Yep.
yes,
Linda
thank
Golan.
you. Hashtag Linda P.
Five is
Golan.
generous.
Hail Xenu Nation. 5 p.m. tonight is
Oh,
Janice and Mark Fisher
Oh,
Eastern.
definitely.
All right. Don't forget,
E-
everybody.
EDT
Right,
is
write that
actually
down.
just to not confuse anybody. EDT, that's Clearwater time. So yeah.
Eastern.
It's catching on.
Eastern time.
Clearwater time.
Clearwater time.
See
It's
if
all in
there's a link.
Clearwater time. Clearwater is a
Yes.
state of mind.
Yep.
So go to our Scientology stories,
And then
peeling
it's
the
peeling
onion.
the onion. Yep.
Peeling the
Mhm.
onion. My husband calls you the onion people. I think Steve-O calls you the
I do
onion
too.
people.
I do too. I love
Oh,
the
she
onion
says
people.
Janice's Clear Head will be dropping by. That'd be great.
Oh, nice. Great.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we'll definitely see you then. I don't think I have anything going on. Oh, my phone's been blowing up, but I've been ignoring my children. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So thank you so much, Mark, and hopefully we'll
Thank
see
you.
you soon. And
Yep.
Of course.
have a great day, everybody.
There we go. Hey, once we end the broadcast,
Thank you.
everybody hang on. Mark, hang on for a minute.
All
But
right.
yeah, let's
Awesome.
thank everybody, and
Thank you,
we'll see you on the
everybody.
next one.
We'll see you Monday night around 9 Eastern. Take care.
Okay.